At the 2024 BET Awards, Taraji P. Henson made Project 2025 a talking point, and it should be.
And it's not hyperbole to say that Project 2025 would dismantle democracy as we know it. Critics are calling it the fascist playbook.
This is the far right being more organized than we've ever seen them before.
Project 2025 is an 1,000-page playbook written by the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank, in partnership with over 100 different right-wing organizations, and it's where The Handmaid's Tale finally comes to life.
Because this is what Jim said, the chaos of last time, they recognized that last time...
They need more discipline.
Right, and they knew that they couldn't get Republicans to agree. They couldn't get the administration to agree. This time, it's going to be much more organized, and it's going to be move fast.
It means no birth control. It promotes capital punishment and the speedy finality of such sentences. It is a Christian nationalist movement and promotes the idea that a government should maintain a biblical definition of what marriage and family is. It would abolish the Department of Education. Scientific research would receive funding only if it aligns with conservative principles. It would explicitly reject abortion as healthcare nationally. It would restructure the government so that independent agencies, including the FTC and FCC, would be under direct presidential control. It would prosecute all state and local governments and any higher institutions that have DEI programs.
And it details comprehensively the Republican strategy to remake the executive branch, concentrating power solely in the hands of the president. But as the far right is well aware, this project can't proceed without restructuring our government's foundations, without eliminating the legal obstacles and checks on the president, like, for example, the Department of Justice, which is why there's a whole chapter in Project 2025 about the DOJ.
It's a controversial idea known as unitary executive theory that would streamline decision-making and potentially replace many career civil servants with political appointees presumably loyal to Mr. Trump. The plan calls for more spending for a U.S.-Mexico border wall, more federal power to control immigration, and increased fees for the immigrants allowed to stay. On this side of the border, big cuts to corporate taxes and income tax for America's highest earners.
Aimed specifically at overhauling key government agencies in a potential second term. The project's mandate states that freedom is defined by God, not man. The radical plan calls for defunding the Department of Justice, dismantling the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security and Health and Human Services.
I don't know how else to put this other than if you read this document, you will know it is terrifying. From the Associated Press, the goal is to avoid the pitfalls of Trump's first years in office when the Republican president's team was ill-prepared. That seems to be a theme. They want to know what they are doing and how they're going to execute it, and it is all in this plan. His cabinet nominees had trouble winning Senate confirmation, and policies were met with resistance by lawmakers, government workers, and even Trump's own appointees who refused to bend or break protocol or in some cases violate laws to achieve his goals. The outlet would call its language apocalyptic. It takes a lot for an outlet like the AP to say that.
Trump intends to bring independent agencies like the Federal Communications Commission, which makes and enforces rules for television and internet companies, and the Federal Trade Commission, which of course enforces various antitrust and other consumer protection rules against businesses, under direct presidential control. Now, again, these are supposed to be independent agencies. Yes, they're federal agencies, but the president of the United States is not supposed to influence these agencies or have any impact on whether or not the heads of these agencies remain in those positions or get fired. These are government agencies tasked with doing incredibly important things, including regulating the food we eat, the drugs we take, protecting the environment, keeping consumer products safe for us all. And when it comes to the Federal Trade Commission, it's supposed to weigh in and prevent major conglomerates or major mergers from happening. Trump wants none of that.
And of course, there is more. In a must-read Twitter thread from Emily Galvin Almanza, she would point out that Donald Trump's Department of Justice would override local voters and prosecutors, in turn bringing federal charges where they deem states not being punitive enough. They will increase the utilization of the death penalty because there's nothing more pro-life than that. They will take election integrity, of course, out of the hands of the Civil Rights Division and put it into Donald Trump's DOJ. She'd tweet, "It's also important to remember the ramifications of highly punitive policies. A DOJ that seeks the max on every case, seeks the death penalty, increases immigration detention, is a federal government expanding and lining the pockets of the prison industrial complex." Additionally, under a Trump admin, they could and would simply choose to stop fighting to make hospitals to offer abortion in cases where it is necessary to save a woman's life. You need to know what is happening here.
I started with number one, which is a whole set of policies that are supposed to enshrine the family, by which they mean a traditional one man married to one woman with their own biological children. They are that specific. So already they've abandoned same-sex marriage. That's gone. So when they talk about parental rights, they mean parental rights insofar as they align with them. There are no parental rights, for example, for the parents of trans kids, like Next Benedict, right, who died as a result of what looks like an anti-trans attack in a public school. They're really coming for the 14th Amendment when it comes to things like same-sex marriage, but also a host of issues, whether we're talking about abortion, other kinds of reproductive health care.
Melissa Gira-Grant, a writer for The New Republic, would speak with Sam Cedar and the Majority Report. Project 2025 would propose requiring military service and has many people concerned about the reinstitution of the draft. And speaking of the military, they have tried to do this previously and are almost guaranteed, in my view, to do it again because they have laid the groundwork of how they want to screw over veterans by making so many cuts, including to the VA, additionally making service members potentially pay for their own health care, cuts to disability insurance for veterans, military housing, and much, much more. How? Over the years, and I understand this country has failed our veterans, but how someone can be a veteran and vote for this is literally stabbing themselves over and over again. That's what this is. That is the stark reality of Project 2025.
They want to abolish lots of government agencies, the Department of Education, Health and Human Services. And so the scale of this leads me to think about the way that authoritarian regimes actually operate, which is if you get rid of a lot of government and then you've got your smaller army of loyalists, it allows the leader and his cronies and his inner circle and his family are often in there. There's talk of Jared Kushner being Secretary of State. They are the ones, a small number of people who actually run government. And they take away the rights of millions, and it's like a band of cronies. And that's the way that authoritarian states actually operate.
Ruth Ben-Ghiat, professor of history and scholar of authoritarianism, rang the alarm on Project 2025. And this is just some of it. This is not all of it. It's 900 pages of what conservatives want out of this country, which is a Christo-fascist dictatorship. We have seen how the wheels have been in motion with the recent SCOTUS rulings, which are absurd. Presidential immunity, although they have had it in the past, each president has, let's be clear. For them to signal now, at this point in time, shows me many things. The first is, we have seen how one election will sway the country for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, 100 years. The second is, we know through vast reporting the conflicts of interest that each of these conservative justices have and hold, how they will not recuse themselves from rulings in which the side that they are presiding over a case to make a judgment they have been involved with. Could be Samuel Alito's fishing. Could be Clarence Thomas and Harlan Crow. Could be Neil Gorsuch with a house that he didn't sell and then suddenly he does to a firm that is involved in a case before him. Could be the weird history of Amy Coney Barrett. John Roberts' wife and the pattern of involvement she has had in other ventures. And what I continue to go back to is a message that we have had on this network for decades. And it is this, and I know many leftists feel this way, is the involvement and intersection of having lawmakers, judges, what have you, be influenced by think tanks, by super PACs, and overall the bottom line being money in politics. So many of the leaders that concocted the document that is Project 2025 likely have a direct involvement in who some of these Supreme Court justices are and how they got there in the first place, how they have been brought up through their own systems and put in this place for this reason. It has shown a blueprint unlike any other in how it has taken them not a day, not a week, not a month, not a year, but decades in order to get to this point. This is playing the long game to a T. And the message from Dems is vote. Vote. I am deeply frustrated. Deeply. I am deeply hurt. And yet here we are. I understand there are many people who are upset for many reasons. I share those. But when I look at this, I don't, as a realist, I don't know what else to say other than it feels like each time we go to the polls, it's putting a Band-Aid on the problem. And now the Band-Aid has come off and we need surgery. And instead of the Dems performing it, they say, let's put another Band-Aid on it. It is important to vote. It's also important to organize. There are many thoughts that I want to say that I can't. But just know that I share your frustrations. Simultaneously, they are telling us what they're going to do. So, singularly and collectively, what are we going to do about it? Leave a thought in the comments section below. Appreciate you watching.